The Charlotte Hornets lose the last home game of the season. A bunch of tribute videos. We'll discuss all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Before we get to the game, before we get to all of the tribute videos, I do want to hope, Doug, at least, that the camera is further away than it was in the last episode where everyone was scared of me popping on the camera. I knew it when we were doing the broadcast, if you will, but I didn't know if the actual YouTube video would change the way that it looked, whatever. Sometimes that happens. Well, sometimes that happens with the grainy video. Sometimes it looks weird on my end, but you're saying it's not going to look this weird. Trust me on this. And then it doesn't. But yeah, I scared a lot of people with my pop-up as soon as the show started yesterday.
Well, listen, you have a scary face. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's intense. The eyebrows.
Exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, that can be good. That could be good in some respects. I mean, if you're getting, if you're about to get mugged, it could be good to have a scary face. It could save you from being assaulted.
Before you rob me.
I'm not robbing that guy.
This is what you see.
I'm not robbing that guy.
This is what you see.
Those eyebrows will kung fu me.
Think again. Wait, really? The face and the eyebrows? This is what we're doing? All right.
I got stuff. Everybody's got stuff. Don't feel Look, I've got stuff. My baby will run up to me and say, "Daddy has two mustaches," because my mustache refuses to connect in the middle. It just is what it is. But she runs up to me and points and says, "Daddy has two mustaches." It's like, oh, thanks, kiddo.
Yeah, I guess we just don't usually call each other out on stuff, but it doesn't matter. You play a different game, and that's okay. Let's go to the Charlotte Hornets game last night. They lose at home, the last home game of the season. They are sending off the home crowd with a big old dud of a performance, and they came out with zero intensity in the first quarter. If you ask the players that, Grant Williams will tell you that. If you ask Steve Clifford, he will tell you the same thing, that the biggest difference from the weekend to what we saw against Dallas, it was the fact that they had no juice at the beginning of this game. Also, Dallas is just really good, and offensively, Luka became the best, and he was the MVP last night, certainly within the first 9 minutes of that game where he goes crazy, finishes the first quarter, and if you really wanted to try to get the most drama out of this, you could say that he finished the first 9 minutes with 21, 7, and 2. It was a stat line that was a really nice stat line for some of our best players on the Hornets roster, and Luka had that immediately. He was going crazy. He attempted 12 three-pointers in the first half. I believe that's the most he's ever taken in the first half of his career. What were some of your takeaways from last night's performance, Doug?
Well, it literally was better than Brandon Miller's line for the entire game, which was 21, 6, and 4. Miles Bridges, 22, 5, and 3. So, yeah, I mean, Luka was able to put up an incredible performance. My takeaway is that this team has an ability to turn it on and turn it off. And I think a lot of times when they play a team with multiple superstars, they lose sort of a sense of belief that they can be competitive in the game, and that reflects itself in the first quarter performance. And then everybody gets together and says, oh, yeah, well, actually we got to go out there and compete. And you typically will see them play better in the second or third quarter, and they certainly did that in the third quarter. But, yeah, I mean, the offensive rebounding for Dallas in the first half killed them. 10 offensive rebounds for 20 second chance points. I mean, that is absurd. And then you look at the third quarter, and they only allow, I think, 2 offensive rebounds. So, they know what to do. They just can't do it consistently, and a lot of that has to do with the talent that's not on the floor. But both from the sense of the talent that's not on the floor that can't perform, but also I think, guys understand what you need to win and win consistently in the NBA, and they understand when they don't have it. But, I saw them at the beginning of the game cutting it up with Steve Clifford during the tribute video, and I thought, all right, everybody seems to be in a good mood. It's a tough challenge, Luka, Kyrie, but it looks like maybe they'll go out and give one more last effort in front of the home crowd for Steve Clifford. And instead, Steve Clifford got the ultimate tribute, which was everyone did all of the things in that game that made Steve Clifford quit.
It was not fun, not at the beginning of this game. In fact, if you were involved in a tribute video last night, your night went straight to hell. PJ Washington was a great player for the Hornets. He's helping out Charlotte again, going 0 of 7.
Amazing.
And it started out bad immediately. I mean, immediately. Miles Bridges pinned PJ Washington's shot off the glass, and then PJ couldn't buy a three, got hurt, had to go out, comes back, has a couple of turnovers, fouls a few times, finishes with 1 point because he couldn't even make both of his free throws. PJ was kind of laughing on the court too. Like, I looked at PJ quite a bit and was smiling. You had to laugh through the pain because that's what it was. I mean, it was not a good performance from him whatsoever, and he's just laughing through it. He got 7 rebounds. That's more than he usually got during his time in Charlotte, even though he's a much better rebounder in Dallas. That's about it. If you got a tribute video, you struggled last night. That's how it was.
Well, he got 7 rebounds because none of those rebounds were critical to winning or losing the game. And don't give me, by the way, don't even give me any of the nervous coming back to Spectrum. Look, he didn't accomplish, as a team, they didn't accomplish anything in Spectrum Center. So there was nothing really to come back home to. He's from Texas. He's not, it's not a coming back and family watching you situation. Get out of here. But I
like that you are making sure, hey, anything no, we need to make sure PJ experiences as much pain as possible. Just so you know that, Doug Branson, will be a lot more comfortable if you know that fact.
Well, I just think, again, going back to what I just said, it was a touching.
What you need.
It was a touching tribute for PJ Washington. You have to understand this too. For weeks in Dallas, he has been on fire. He has been amazing. Mm-hmm. And so to ride the roller coaster, it was not only a tribute to Clifford, but a tribute to fans in Spectrum Center that had to ride the PJ roller coaster for so many years. He gave us one last ride. So salute, PJ. Thank you.
Yeah, people were asking about the Gordon Hayward compared to PJ Washington tribute video. It seems like people are way more angry about the Gordon Hayward tribute video because, and I get it, PJ gave us moments. We have the rookie night, we have the Kings, we have the Warriors. Gordon, it was funny because I couldn't remember. Doug, we do this podcast every day. I don't remember any Gordon Hayward moments. I just remember him going out there and being solid when healthy, but I don't remember, oh man, I remember a dunk against KD, I think, or in transition. I know Terry Rozier had one, but I don't have moments for Gordon, and that's why it's okay, you probably can find enough for PJ.
Well, you don't have moments for Gordon because he was the kind of player that you picked up with the idea that he would perform well in the playoffs. This is the kind of guy that you need that can go out and get you, a mid-range bucket when the defense clamps down and everything gets tighter. That was the whole idea of acquiring him. The problem, they never even got into that position, and part of the reason they didn't get into that position was because Gordon Hayward missed so many games. So of course you don't have those. I don't know that he's ever been the kind of player that gives you the big, splash in the regular season that everybody remembers. That was not really his game. And so I do think, though, that the Gordon Hayward tribute video was funnier because the cutaway to him off the video when he's in street clothes, which is amazing, and then he just sort of looks up at the Jumbotron and is like, oh, yeah.
Every tribute video did exactly what, and everybody during the moment, it unfolded exactly the way it was always supposed to. Steve Clifford gets blown out at home. PJ Washington has a crazy cold game, and Gordon Hayward doesn't play. It's perfect. It's a beautiful thing.
Walker, we haven't talked about this, and I don't know that this really needs a conversation more so than just an observation. It is pretty incredible to be a fan of a team that made the greatest player of all time quit, give up the team because he was tired of losing. That's, when it all comes down to it, MJ wanted to go do his race team, and he was tired of being over a losing team. And also made a coach quit who explicitly told you, yeah, it's the losing. Like that's
losing is a part of the problem. Yep,
I don't
not
think
here for it.
I honestly don't think that people are really absorbing that. Like fans are really taking that. I don't know, maybe they are, but it hit me the other day. I'm like, wait a minute. The owner of a team it has to be unprecedented. The owner of a team and a coach in the same sort of time period, season, year, whatever you want to call it, quitting the team because they lost too much. That's incredible.
Locked On Mavs host Nick Angstadt knows it. He tweeted at us and said it might be the hardest podcast to do on the network, having watched the Hornets lose by 20. And there's a fake comeback in there in the third, fourth quarter, and that was about it. And then eventually the Hornets got destroyed. There's a couple other things I wanted to get to in this game, but let's do that in the third segment and have some other thoughts there about the broadcast in the third segment. But coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the coaching search. Yesterday, we talked a little more about Lindsey Harding. There are two other coaches to discuss today. Find out who that is in the next segment. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. There are plenty of deals to get in on, too. Priority last-minute deals means that you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. It's not just sporting events. You can even get flash and zone deals. You could save even more with some of those deals that you choose a section and then let Game Time choose the seat for you. And then you also have select seats that you can pick ahead of the game or the event. Plus, there's all-in pricing, so you don't get surprised at the end where you thought, okay, I thought I was only paying this amount, and then there's a whole bunch of fees and stuff at the end, and now you're paying $50 extra. Not with Game Time. That's not how it works. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Walker, back here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Walker, just want to say your hair looks great. Okay, I just want to say that your hair looks great. Just want to try to try to clean it up, try to make up for the first segment. I apologize. I don't do that often, so
some people like my eyebrows. Thank you very much. I know my co-host who has to stare at them every day doesn't, but that's fine.
Your barber who charges extra to cut them. Yeah, I bet. See, I'm sorry. If you would just let me, I apologize. If you would just let me stop there and moved on, that's your fault.
Yeah, and I
take back my apology. In fact, now.
Oh, good. Yeah, you don't apologize anyway. At least I have a middle mustache to cut, just like my eyebrows. You don't know what that's like. Anyways, do you want to get on the coaching search? You want to do this? All right. So Jay Larranaga, yes, his name is back. Doug Jay Larranaga. Now the Hornets are interviewing him as a possible head coaching candidate. You have here the rundown. I want to give you credit for this joke because you have it here.
Thank you.
The question you ask is, does a coaching search really even start until Jay Larranaga is in the mix? To which I answer, I don't think so. I don't think it starts until that happens.
And not just for the Hornets, who interviewed him back in 2018, and Jay lost out. I don't know if he was a finalist. I don't recall, but he lost out to James Borrego. But, yeah, I mean, this is a name that comes up in nearly every coaching search, and it's a bridesmaid bride situation. It's just never can get the top job, but is always – just respected enough around the league to say, hey, let's give old Jay a call and see what he's doing.
Like, what are we? It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen here with Charlotte. It's not going to happen. It's funny that even when the Hornets were scrambling, they were desperate for a coach. They decided to go back to Steve Clifford instead of go to Jay Larranaga, who is not going to get a job anywhere. He's going to be an interviewee, and then he's going to go right back to whatever assistant job he's holding at that time. The more interesting conversation that most people want to have here, Doug, it's with Dawn Staley. So if you're going for the first woman coach to be a head coach in the NBA, we discussed Lindsey Harding, who the Hornets are actually interviewing as potential candidate for this vacancy. And she is the G League coach for the Stockton Kings, an assistant with Sacramento for a while, also has some background with Philadelphia, former Duke player, number 1 overall pick with the WNBA draft, an absolute stud. You go to Dawn Staley, and very similar playing background, and that Dawn Staley is one of the best basketball players and one of the best amongst her peers that we've seen in the last, what, I don't even know how far you have to go back, I guess 30 years, 40 years or so. We're talking about, like, I always love, we worship Dawn Staley around here. The fact that she's a head coach of South Carolina, she goes undefeated this season, she wins multiple championships, and perhaps my favorite fact, because just so little amount of people have been able to do this, she's the freaking flag bearer for the 2004 Olympics, which is just nuts. And Charlotte Sting.
That's what I was going to wait for that. Yeah, I mean, Charlotte. When I think of Charlotte Sting, when anyone thinks of Charlotte Sting, the WNBA team for Charlotte, former WNBA team for Charlotte, they think of Dawn Staley. She was the face of the Sting.
Absolutely the face of the Sting. And the fact that she still is in the local area, it makes sense that people would bring her up because she is so successful with South Carolina. Doug, it feels like she has the personality that gravitates towards, one, pretty much everyone. Like, I don't know anybody that doesn't like Dawn Staley. I really don't. But also it feels like a personality that would also be accepted by professionals. And it does feel like she can make that jump. When we discuss somebody like a Nate Oates or someone else making that jump from the college game, Nate Oates has one Final Four appearance, but there's also a bunch of early exits. There's not the track record that Dawn Staley has at South Carolina, where she's got 3 championships in an undefeated season, and she has local ties, and she does have that personality that feels like it would be accepted by pros. All that to say, Doug, I don't know if she would want this job because she has it pretty damn good in Columbia.
Well, she has it pretty good, and I think in the past, and I might have this wrong, but I believe in the past they've asked her about these kinds of opportunities, and she hasn't exactly been – I mean, everybody.
Yeah, she said she's not really interested in coaching men. I think that was the comment, something to that effect.
Yeah, and I think – you know, whether it's men, women, whatever, I think whenever you're asked about the next job, you know, even Lindsey Harding was asked when she took over the Stockton Kings, you know, would you be interested in coaching, you know, being a head coach of an NBA team? And she was like, look, I'm, you know, focused on what I'm doing now, championship, blah, blah, blah. They're always going to give that same answer. But, yeah, I think Dawn Staley in particular has been more explicit about the jump to the NBA. And so, yeah, now people can say things at the time, and then they get the opportunity, and then they go, well, yeah, my thoughts change. So, like, all of that can get flipped upside down if she actually, you know, gets the call and you know, gets the offer to be the next Hornets head coach. I think she has track record of excellence. I think she has, like, the right sort of intensity. I think you're right. Like, there was no chance she would be intimidated by any challenge. And the only concern I have would be the same concern I would have with Nate Oates or any college coach, is the jump to college to the NBA, where now in college, it is changing in terms of NIL and dealing with people who are making a lot of money now. But, you know, college is recruiting, and you're dealing with people that are going to give you a level of intensity that is going to match the fact that they want to make the jump to the next level. In the NBA, all of that changes because there is no super NBA. And I mean, look at Clifford right now having to deal with these guys who come out in the first quarter and lay an absolute egg against Dallas. There's a thing that exists in the NBA where it's like you've got to motivate people who are making a ton of money regardless if they go out there and perform very well or not. And you really have to, like, find a way to tap in to that super ego that they have and get all of them to, and even Clifford told you part of the reason he's quitting is that he doesn't even have the energy anymore to get some of those guys to come into practice and practice the way that you have to practice to be excellent in the NBA. So it's a tough thing. So my only concern with Dawn Staley would be that jump from college to the NBA, but she you know, checks all of the other boxes. And I will say too, you know, we talked in the last episode about Lindsey Harding and is this franchise functional enough, because there will come a lot of scrutiny, there will come a lot of attention. But I'll say for Dawn Staley, she answers tough questions all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, she has a media savvy, and she has a presence that I think even if the Hornets organization wasn't as functional, she could balance some of that just because she has been through the media fire so many times as head coach of South Carolina.
Yeah, it feels like Dawn Staley never disappoints us at the podium, no matter what the situation is. I thought it was goosebumpy when she took the mic when the broadcast was about to end, and she said, "Oh no, you're not going to play the music on me. I'm going to give Caitlin Clark her flowers." And what she did with Caitlin Clark, saying she is one of our goats during this whole debate about whether Caitlin Clark needs a championship or not, and then after South Carolina beats her, she's saying no, she still is one of the goats, and it's going to happen in the WNBA. Just real goosebumpy moment. And Dawn Staley always answers it the right way. The only question, too, I wonder if when you compare Dawn Staley to Lindsey Harding, which I don't like doing, it confines the box to, well, if we compare woman to woman. But if you are going to make this unprecedented move in the NBA, I would be interested in the comparison with Lindsey Harding having been in the NBA, yep, knowing the players and knowing the rosters, like having the scouting process, where that's not Dawn's job. Her scouting process resides in the women's game with getting the high school prospects that are the best, and which she does. And so that's something that I would consider too. So even so, the biggest difference is in the college game, any coach, man or woman, doesn't matter. They have so much control. So when these coaches go to the NBA, you have to relinquish control over personnel because they're recruiting. They get to decide whoever they want to go after. And then you do not have that in the NBA. In fact, it's highly advisable to not allow any of those coaches to have that type of control. And so the coaches that buy in, Billy Donovan has been relatively successful, not amazing. He might even go back to Kentucky. I know there's some rumors there. But Billy Donovan has been a pretty decent head coach. Brad Stevens, it worked out really well, and then he moved to a front office role. But historically, the numbers are in the favor of, hey, don't make this jump over, making this jump. And that would maybe apply for Dawn Staley too. But I'd love to see the experiment. She's just so cool. I'd love her to be the face of the franchise.
It would be an amazing story because, again, she has so many connections to the area. It would be a fantastic story. And, we'll see how this process plays out. Because I don't even think that there's been an interview scheduled. This report seems very there might be some interest from both parties. Yeah. So we'll have to see.
Well, no, and it's the local thing. That's what it is, because there hasn't been any reports on the Hornets reaching out to Dawn Staley, that the fact that she would be interested, because you're right. We have the comments saying she's not interested in coaching men, not right now. We'll see if that changes.
And look, the jump to the NBA would be fantastic, but at the same time, look at what she's accomplishing at South Carolina. She's already, I think, legend status there, but she is – legend, icon. I mean, she is making that sort of thing there in South Carolina. You come to Charlotte, it's another ball game, as we're seeing against Dallas. I mean, there are challenges. It's not because, going back to the game, it's not just about plug LaMelo Ball, plug Mark Williams back in, and everything's okay. Fans have to understand that this team has deep systemic issues that go beyond injuries. That the challenge will be for the next head coach to figure out and Jeff Peterson to figure out this offseason.
Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast, maybe get to some finishing notes on the game last night between Dallas and Charlotte, and also talk about the broadcast. Eric Collins, Del Curry, Ashley Shamity, Terrence Oglesby. Who's staying? Is anybody leaving? We'll get to that in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. And it's important to let that out, especially to someone who is unbiased on your life. Now, we deal with a lot of Charlotte Hornets issues, a lot of sports issues. Today, you might want to tell us how you feel about something, and it might not even be sports related. You might even be thinking about the same thing every single week over and over again. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, as I mentioned. But if you're thinking of getting therapy a try, then give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Walker, before we get to the broadcast team and some stray observations from this Dallas game, did want to shout out a few folks that I saw at the game while I was in Charlotte. We had a lot to get to yesterday, so I didn't get to the shout-outs, so I'll get to the shout-outs now. Saw a guy, Evan Hale. You might remember him. He was the guy that met the owners, met Rick Schnall, met Gabe Plotkin. And he's a huge fan of the show. Wanted to dap it up while I was there. And he's great. He is a committed fan. I don't know if he's comfortable with me sharing where he's from, but I'll just say it is a long drive to the Spectrum Center for him, and he is dedicated. I've met a few folks this year, talked to a few folks on subtext. They make incredible drives to these games. Like some folks from Greensboro, it's crazy. Like the commitment that these folks have to Charlotte. That's what I'm saying. There's burning embers of an amazing fan base here. That if Gabe and Rick can put a product on the floor, this thing's going to be on fire. Also saw our guy Rod, who's been on the show, Rodimus Prime on Twitter. Saw him at the games too. So always fun to see a few fans of the show.
No, it is. Yeah, it's really cool. I saw Jimmy not too long ago, who's like a P1 for the podcast and has been for a long time. Got to see his kid. They went to the Magic game, and they had a really cool so they're Gonzaga fans, and they had a really cool Bugs and Jalen Suggs sign, and the kid was so happy to show Bugs and Suggs. Like, that's right up our alley. So like it was really cool to meet some of the listeners there. We appreciate everybody's support. Yeah, really cool that you got to meet Evan, by the way.
And saw my guy Chris too. Dapped it up with Chris too real quick. So yeah.
Awesome. P1. These P1s are out here, baby. Yeah, we got to keep producing them. Any stray observations you wanted to hit me with?
There was one connection in this game that I really did like, and it happened towards the back half of the game, and that was the Trey Man to Nick Richards. There's a little bit of these guys got a little bit of a groove, and when Mark gets back and all these guys get back, you could be seeing next season more Trey Man to Nick Richards if all of those guys come back and aren't traded or whatever. The Trey Man and Nick, they have a good little Lob City connection that I really like.
Yeah, it was a weird game for Trey Man. I was trying to figure out just how well he played, and it was hit or miss. But he did have that connection with Nick Richards, who Richards has been coming off of the bench. Grant Williams has been starting, and I don't know. They have a game against Cleveland. Cleveland's big. Maybe you start Nick
Daniel
Richards
Gafford
there, but
killed them in this game. 26 points, 12 of 12 from the field. This is not the first time that Gafford has done this to the Hornets. He did it as a member of the Wizards. That's also had 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. Kyrie's line was crazy. He had 18, 8, 9, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. He kept taking Miles Bridges cookies. And my God, like my entire kingdom for Miles Bridges to get 2 hands on a basketball on a loose ball rebound and smack that ball and don't let anyone else have it. Like over the past couple of games, particularly in critical moments in that game against OKC, he allowed someone to smack the ball out of his hands. Dude, grab that thing. Grab that pumpkin and don't let go.
Daniel Gafford going 12 of 12. It takes me back to like a 2 years ago consistent take where it was asking the Hornets to not let the big guys shoot 90% or better on high volume because we could go. Daniel Gafford is one. I definitely was thinking about that as I was watching him dunk every single time he got the ball last night. Clint Capella, an offender, somebody that gives us 9 out of 10. I believe Andre Drummond may have had one of those games as well. But anybody with size, Joel Embiid, I know he probably went 18 of 23 against the Hornets, some crazy, ridiculous percentage. That happened again last night. 12 of 12, 100% shooting. That's not too bad from Daniel Gafford, who was awesome. You want to get to the broadcast? Let's do it. So, I was at the game. I didn't see it live, but I did see some of the clips circulating on social media afterwards. And with this being the last home game, this is the last time that really this means Terrence Oglesby is a part of the broadcast because they're going to hit the road for the next 3 games. But the entire crew is intact here for this one. Dell Curry, Eric Collins, Ashley Shamity, Terrence Oglesby. And Doug, you were watching, so I'll let you take it away. But it does feel like Ashley is leaving. It feels like we can say for sure like that's how it feels. Maybe we can be wrong on that, but everybody has been anticipating her departure for at least 2 years. Like we've been talking about this. And so maybe this is finally the time that we see Ashley leave. But also the way that Terrence Oglesby was talking, it very well could be like reflective over just, hey, this is my first year. Wanted to say thank you to everyone. But there was a little sense of people. I saw people commenting too, like, wait, is Terrence leaving? We know he has the college stuff, the field of 68, but Terrence was great this year. They've been looking for stability at that spot for a while. And I think Terrence has done a great job. maybe he's just such a busy man that he's leaving too. Like, I don't know, but that one's a little bit more up in the air, and maybe he just comes back. But it does feel like this is the time, and we've been anticipating it for quite a while.
Yeah, it felt just short of saying an actual goodbye for Ashley,
Yeah.
and it makes a lot of sense. And before tonight, I felt this coming because she's been everywhere. She's doing Braves coverage. She's doing college football studio shows. And she's grown tremendously in that sideline role, like asking Steve Clifford like really good, tough questions this season. And so this happens. I mean, you get the sideline gig and you grow out of it. And I think that's what we saw it with Stephanie Reddy. And I think now we're seeing it with Ashley Shahamady. So honestly, I hope she's been one of the best sideline reporters we have. So I don't love the fact that she's leaving, or if she's leaving, but I'm always glad to see these people grow out of the role, because it means the Hornets made a good hire. And so I hope if she is gone, I hope they make another good hire, and I hope that person grows out of the role. Like if someone's in a sideline gig, for 10, 15 years, sometimes that means they love it and they just don't want to do anything else. But a lot of times it means that they just, can't get to that next level. And Ashley, I think, is more than at that next level. So I hope good things for her. Good luck to her if she is heading out the door.
We sport a good broadcast booth here in Charlotte. That's what we have. We don't have a lot of wins.
That's right.
The seasons
hang the
have
banner.
been rough.
Hang the banner. Great broadcast group.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. I mean, I do think Eric Collins, depending on how long he stays here, and maybe he doesn't even need to stay here that much longer. Eric Collins is legend status. Like, people are always going to remember him as a Hornets broadcaster, and so I wonder if there could be some kind of honoring to something, whatever they give him. Right? Yeah. I mean, Rick Bonnell deservedly gets the media room, the media entrance. I don't know if Eric Collins would. I don't know what you would give him, but it would make sense to honor him in some type of way. And he's not going anywhere. At least I hope not. He or Dell, who make a great team. But the comment I'll have for Ashley is, imagine filling the shoes for Stephanie Reddy,
yeah, right,
who was beloved by this Hornets fan base. And we all rioted when they sidelined her after putting her in the booth,
right,
and creating a 3-man booth between Eric, Dell, and Stephanie. And that was kind of dirty how they did it, because the first time, when you go back on it, that's what gets frustrating. It's when you put her in the booth and then you sideline her again, and then it became a hashtag for Hornets Twitter, Don't sideline Steph. Everybody loved her because she was legitimately very good at her job. And then so she moves on to greener pastures, at least more national pastures. And then we welcome Ashley Shahamady, who I think grew a ton. It's actually pretty crazy, in my opinion. If you go back and watch her first broadcast, the first couple of years, she was very good. But as we all do, we get so much better. Like, if you listen to me in 2018 on this podcast, I'd like to think I sound a lot better now than I did in 2018. And I think that's what you get when you hear Ashley on a call or on the sideline, and she's doing so many other things. It's because of her hard work, because of she's dedicated as well. Like, she lives in Atlanta, or she did for a while. And I don't know the situation, but I know she's going back and forth between Braves country and Hornets country. So huge salute, who became, damn near as beloved as Stephanie Reddy, which is really hard to do. And so they figure that stuff out. Like, they got the top 3. They get that figured out, and those people stay a long time. And we appreciate that, because it's tough to watch the Hornets games, tough to watch those seasons when they lose a million times. And at least we get a good broadcast during some of those painful games.
And I'll agree with you on Terrence as well. I think he's been fantastic this season, and a breath of fresh air on that desk. He's very honest, and I think a lot of times that's dangerous, because even if an organization says, hey, we're going to hire this person and we want them to be sort of an honest broker voice, sometimes they don't mean it. So it does, even if an organization gives you sort of the leeway to be that, it does take a certain amount of bravery to get on the mic and like critique a team. And he was not afraid to critique a team. He was not afraid to critique a player. And so if he is moving on, I think it will be a loss as well. And the Hornets, they've been really, for the past, they've knocked the sideline gig out, like with Stephanie Reddy and then following with Ashley. They've knocked that out of the park. This desk role has been a struggle, if we're being honest. Like, finding that next voice has been difficult. Terrence, I hope he does stay, because I think he can be that guy. But if he doesn't, they've got to find someone for that desk role, because there are other teams doing it well. The Hornets are not doing that. They haven't done it traditionally until Terrence.
Well, I mean, look, the elephant in the room, if you know me at all, is the fact that I co-host with a guy that did hold that job down. Now, the thing is, Wes wasn't a basketball player. He's a football player that brought a lot of energy and fun to that role. And I think a lot of people enjoyed it. And you talk about somebody getting better. Wes Bryant got a lot better, and he was dedicated to that job. And he was just so much fun and just a huge ball of energy. But I guess to some extent, understandably, if you want to pivot away from fun, okay, which is what they decided to do, and you wanted to bring us some of the nerddom, some of the knowledge, they tried to go with the familiarity thing. George Lynch, North Carolina guy, didn't work out. So then they moved to Terrence, who they finally just did the thing, Doug. They get somebody that is already talking about basketball, who did play locally here. He played his college ball at Clemson. He's available on home game days. He's going to wear a suit, and he's going to knock it out of the park because he knows the game, and he's in front of the camera frequently. So it's like, it is hard. I don't want to say it's not. I don't want to say it's easy to hire the right guy, but at least you just went the standard route here with Terrence Oglesby, and it was a great hire for what you want. If you want to pivot away from all of the fun and you want a little more in-game analysis from somebody who played the sport, this is the guy that you got that right on, and we'll see if he stays. If he doesn't, it can't be because the broadcast is deciding to let him go. It just could not be that. I refuse to believe it.
Well, here's a novel idea, because I think you're right. Wes did bring like that fun and that fire and that sizzle to that broadcast. Here's an idea. How about you do both? Like there are plenty of desks that feature 2 or 3 people. Memphis is doing this right, and they're having a terrible season. You don't have to win just to put an entertaining product out on the floor in terms of your broadcast team. So, I don't know how much influence the ownership group can have in that, how much money comes from the team in this respect in terms of the hire, but I would advise the team to invest in the media presence that's out front of your product and find a booth that's going to give you both the fun and the nerddom. And, sometimes they like to have a player on the desk to have that sort of player perspective. So, have that too. You can hire multiple people. They've been trying to do this one in, one out, react to the last person, whatever. And if Terrence is leaving, they've really got to figure that desk out to make things. And I also agree with one other thing you said earlier. You have grown a lot in the role, Walker. You've gotten a lot better.
Thank you.
You've grown a lot. Your eyebrows have grown a lot too. It's crazy. Like if you look at those past shows to now.
No, you missed the No, I think you nailed it. Every segment you said something about my eyebrows, so I appreciate it.
I love you. This is family. This is what family does. We rib each other. Come on.
Yeah. No, it was all 3. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen.
It might be the last. It might be the last for Walker too. Walker, that might have been my tribute video to Walker.
What is it? Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. April 10th. All right. See if I make it past this weekend. But until then, at least we have a couple more shows here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure, at least with the next couple of days, you check us out on YouTube, anywhere you get your pods. But on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and also the notification button, so you know when we drop each and every episode. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.